Hi everyone! Today I will be informing you about how COVID-19 has increased the amount of plastic pollution in the oceans. I will be talking about the plastic pollution before the pandemic, during, and projections for the plastic pollution in the oceans after the pandemic. COVID-19 has reversed any efforts made to diminish the single-use plastics in our everyday life, and in return, it has actually been said that by 2050 there will be more trash than fish by weight in our oceans. Before diving deep into our current situation, I found it important to acknowledge where we were before. So, with that being said, in 2010, there was 99.5 million tons of coastal plastic waste. And pulled from that same 2010 data, it was estimated that there is enough plastic waste in the oceans to fill every foot of coastline in the world with 5 plastic grocery bags filled with plastic. And this occurs every year. In 2018, one of the oceans, the Gyre Ocean, was coined as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And there was about 87,000 tons of plastic in this ocean. Also, in 2018, it was estimated that there was more than 8 million tons of plastic alone that entered the ocean each year. And we produce about 300 million tons of plastic a year, with 50% of that being plastic single-use items. And mind you, this was found in 2018, so with the pandemic, it has actually skyrocketed. And for example, when my family goes to the grocery store, we used to bring our reusable bags, and since the pandemic, we are now not allowed to ensure everybody's safety, but unfortunately, we have to get plastic bags or paper bags, nevertheless single-use items. And this isn't even very correlated to the pandemic. I mean, it is correlated, but the items like masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer bottles are kind of separate and more related to the pandemic. And when I say masks, they actually contain a plastic called polypropylene, and this is woven into them, so they cannot be decomposed of, because people think that they have paper, so that you can just throw them outside and they will become one with nature, which is not very true. And they cannot be recycled, which is important to note. So they can't be recycled, and they cannot be decomposed of, so they just sit in landfills or the ocean. As well as that, there was a recent study done by the Environmental Science and Technology Journal that said nearly 130 billion face masks and 65 billion gloves are being used around the world. Just for some perspective, if the amount of face masks and gloves produced and projected to be produced by the end of 2020 were to be stitched together, it would equate to the landmass of Switzerland. And another visual is that the amount of plastic in the ocean currently equates to 1 garbage truck's worth of plastic being dumped into the ocean every minute. And this is a big visual for me, at least. And on the same website, I found a quote that I liked by Mike Alcalade, which said, "It's ironic that in dealing with the coronavirus crisis, we are stacking up difficulties for another one in parallel." And this is important because although we feel doomed right now, we are really just dooming ourselves even further with the damage that we are doing. And as we know, one of the bigger factors in plastic pollution in the oceans is how it affects the animal life or the sea life. And one of the more COVID-related items are gloves, and these can easily be mistaken as jellyfish to sea creatures, and they eat it, and they have these toxins in their bodies, and unfortunately a lot of them die. So why is there so much plastic? Well, apart from obvious reasons of single-use items, the oil market actually crashed, and big corporations are buying these cheap plastics more than ever because they are profiting more. And these big corporations obviously want to profit more as they are financially competitive with their competitors. A really important thing to note is that with the pandemic hitting, recycling companies have taken a huge hit, and with the budget cuts that recycling companies are facing, they cannot actually recycle any of the plastic that they are getting. So where does this plastic go? If it cannot be recycled and we are creating so much more of it, and recycling companies are going out of business, they end up in the landfill, and if they don't, they end up in the ocean, which is where we have come to our problem. So what's next? Well, if we keep going down this road, it is said that by 2020 we are on track to see 30% more waste than 2019, obviously very correlated with the pandemic. And the amount of plastic trash that gets into the ocean every year is expected to triple by 2040 to 29 million metric tons. So before the pandemic, there was more than 8 million metric tons of plastic in the ocean a year. But with the global pandemic, there's only been an increase in plastic due to single-use items and budget cuts by hitting recycling companies. With that being said, the track we are headed on tells us that the damage done can be tripled by an estimated of 20 years. Thank you for listening, and I hope to have successfully informed everyone.